When my father raised his glass at dinner, he didn't toast me. He toasted my brother. "To Dylan," he said, "the first real soldier in this family." The table erupted in laughter. My mother smiled. And I sat there, silent, watching the people who gave me life erase everything I'd ever fought for. They didn't know that, while they bragged about my brother's SEAL training, I had just come back from signing off a rescue operation that saved 43 men. Men like him. That night, I realized something broke for good. Not in them. In me. My name is Cameron Tate, and this is the story of how my family mocked me in front of the world, until a general stood up and saluted me first. The smell of roasted meat lingered in the air, warm and heavy. Golden light from the chandelier spilled across the table, catching on the polished silverware that clinked in careful rhythm. My family looked like a portrait of comfort, at least, from the outside. My father spoke first, his voice thick with pride. "To Dylan," he said, lifting his glass. "The Tate name is back where it belongs. My son will serve the Navy, just like his old man did." My mother's laugh followed like a rehearsed cue. She filled Dylan's glass to the rim, then turned to me and poured half a measure. "You shouldn't drink too much, sweetheart. You've got work in the morning, right?" "I just got back from Bahrain," I said quietly. "Oh? Vacation?" she asked, almost absently. I didn't answer. None of them knew where I'd been, or who I'd brought home alive. My father simply shifted the conversation back to Dylan. "He'll be a SEAL soon. Now that's real service. That's a man's work." I cut my steak and smiled, tasting the salt that wasn't from the seasoning. He added, almost as an afterthought, "Cameron's in the service too, but more the office kind, not the field. Paperwork doesn't count." The fork slipped from my hand. I let the silence hang between us, pretending not to hear the edge in his voice. Inside, I felt the weight of 30 years pressing down, the kind that leaves no visible scar. My mother tried to soften the moment. "You've always been strong, dear. You don't need anyone's approval." If only she knew that strength is lonelier than weakness. I looked at the empty chair across from me, the space where recognition should have sat, and finished my wine in one quiet swallow. Later, when the dishes were cleared and their laughter drifted upstairs, I stopped by my old room. Dust coated the photo of me in uniform, taken the day I graduated West Point. I wiped the glass clean with my sleeve and stared at the young woman inside it. I wasn't invisible. They just never wanted to see me. The next morning, I drove past rows of golden trees, the kind that looked peaceful enough to make you forget what silence could do to a person. The radio played a report on a relief mission overseas, an operation I had once commanded. They mentioned every name but mine. I let out a short laugh. That part was always the same. I remembered being 18, holding my West Point acceptance letter, while my father told me it was a school for men. He never came to graduation. Later, when I was deployed to Iraq, my mother sent one message: "Be careful and come home soon. Don't do anything dangerous. Not I'm proud of you. Just don't make waves." My fingers tightened on the wheel as I thought of Aleppo. The heat and dust. The moment General Monroe pinned the Bronze Star on my chest. He said I was the best commander he'd ever seen, and wiser than most, because I knew when to stay silent. So I did. For 10 years. When I reached home, a letter waited in my mailbox, an invitation to Dylan's SEAL graduation in Coronado. The presiding officer's name stopped me cold. General Allen Monroe. I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, unsure whether I wanted him to recognize me or not. That night, I requested 3 days of leave. Destination, Coronado. The night before my flight, I folded my dress blues on the bed, each medal glinting like a memory I'd rather forget. On my desk lay a photo from Aleppo, me among men twice my size, all of us covered in dust and exhaustion. I turned the frame face down. Commander Davis called. General Monroe asked if I'd be at Coronado. I said I'd attend, off duty. When the call ended, I opened a text from my mother. Bring something light. No need for formal clothes. I almost laughed. If only she knew what formal meant to me. An email alert followed. Press may attend the ceremony. If I wore the uniform, my rank would no longer be a secret. I stared at my reflection, the jacket against my chest. The woman looking back wasn't afraid. She was tired of vanishing. 2 suitcases sat open, one with civilian clothes, one with my uniform. 2 lives, 1 truth. I closed the case with a soft metallic click, the sound of a promise. Tomorrow, I would board a flight to San Diego, not as the daughter they pitied, but as the soldier they never saw. The sun over Coronado hit like fire, flags snapping against the wind as families filled the stands. I walked beside my parents and Dylan, my dress blues catching the light. My mother leaned toward another woman, smiling. My daughter works at the Pentagon, desk job, almost ready to retire. The woman nodded politely. I just said, lots of paperwork. At the gate, a young officer saluted. Good morning, General Tate. My father frowned. What did he call you? I met his eyes. Probably a mistake. The ceremony began. Rows of SEALs stood at attention as General Monroe took the podium. His gaze found mine, recognition flickering after a decade. When he spoke of honor and discipline, he stopped mid-sentence, stepped down, and crossed the field, each step echoing like thunder. He halted in front of me. Brigadier General Cameron Tate, ma'am. It's an honor to have you here. The world froze. Then he turned to the microphone. For those who don't know, General Tate once commanded the mission that saved American lives in Aleppo. The crowd rose to its feet in salute. My mother gasped. My father's jaw locked. Dylan, standing among the graduates, lifted his hand, his first salute to me. When the applause faded, I looked at them and thought, I never hid. They just never looked. After the ceremony, the sea wind felt heavier. My mother rushed to me. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said. Every time, he changed the subject. My father's voice trembled. You're really a general? Yes. I coordinate the very SEAL operations you just cheered for. Dylan approached, eyes bright. You led Aleppo Rescue? I studied that mission. You're the reason I joined. I smiled faintly. Then do it your way. Not mine. By sunset, the photo of Monroe saluting me had gone viral inside the Navy. Messages flooded in. Now they all know. My parents drove off in silence. That night, Dylan called. They're stunned, but maybe starting to see. Good, I said. Let them see from where they stand. The next morning, an email waited. General Tate, we need you in Alaska. Severe storm damage. I stared at the silver stars on my desk. Once, I wanted their eyes on me. Now I wasn't sure they'd survive the glare. A week after Coronado, Washington felt colder. Whispers followed me through the Pentagon halls, part awe, part curiosity. Commander Davis caught me outside the briefing room. General, that video went viral. Everyone's talking. I kept walking. Then we work harder. My inbox overflowed. Congratulations from colleagues. A single email from my mother. We're sorry. We just didn't understand. I read it once, then deleted it. That afternoon, a guard called upstairs. General, 2 civilians claim to be your parents. They're asking to see you. I looked out the window at the rain streaking the glass. Tell them General Tate is in a meeting. From my office. I watched them being escorted away. My mother turned back once, clutching a small frame in her hands. I felt the sting deep in my chest, but didn't move. That night, Dylan called. They're falling apart. Dad's reading everything he can about ranks. Mom cries all day. They're learning, I said quietly. Shame is the first step toward understanding. Minutes later, an alert blinked on my screen. Severe blizzard. Anchorage base compromised. Immediate coordination required. I stood, prepped the team. We leave tonight, hours later. The transport plane cut through black skies. The wind howled outside as I studied the map lit in red. When I was 18, I thought. I believed service meant making my father proud. Now I know it means serving without needing to be seen. Before boarding the rescue helicopter, my phone buzzed. Be careful, Cameron. We may have failed you, but we still love you. I folded it shut, staring at the horizon swallowed by snow. Sometimes love comes later than the storm. The blizzard hit like a living thing, wind screaming at 70 miles an hour. Snow cutting visibility to nothing. Squad Alpha, maintain line. Bravo, hold 20 degrees. I ordered over the radio. Static answered back. General, we're losing visibility. Then hold the line by your voice, not your eyes. Thousands of miles away. My parents watched the same storm on TV. The anchor's voice trembled. Operation led by Brigadier General Cameron Tate. My mother cried openly. My father sat frozen. She's out there, he whispered. Alone. We landed hard near the collapsed fuel bay. Snow whipped across our faces. A soldier stumbled. I grabbed his vest. Don't stop. They're waiting for us. Red flares burst through the white, reflecting off my face like fire and glass. 6 hours later, all 43 men were safe. A reporter caught my breathless words on camera. No one was left behind. That's all that matters. The clip aired nationwide, in Virginia. My father rose from the couch, went to my old room, and wiped the dust from my West Point photo. She did what I never could, he whispered. When I returned to D.C., Commander Davis met me at the hangar. You saved lives, General. We saved understanding, I said. That night, a letter waited on my desk. Outstanding leadership under extreme conditions. Recommendation, promotion to Major General. I smiled faintly. Titles don't save anyone, but sometimes they save what's left of faith. Outside, the last snowflake melted against the window. White silence, finally still. 2 months after Alaska. The Pentagon felt quieter than usual. The corridors gleamed under sterile white light, cold and clinical, the opposite of that kitchen where my father once toasted my brother. I had just finished a press briefing when Commander Davis stepped in. General, your parents are here. They're requesting a meeting. I told him to bring them not to my office, but to the standard conference room on the 4th floor. Neutral ground. No warmth. No comfort. Just truth. When the door opened, they looked smaller than I remembered, swallowed by the brightness. Dylan followed behind, hat in hand, his face unreadable. For 10 seconds, no one spoke. The only sound was the clock ticking, slicing through the silence. My father finally broke it. We didn't know. We didn't understand. How could you keep something like this from us for so long? I didn't hide it, I said quietly. You just never wanted to see. My mother's voice trembled. We're proud of you, Cameron, truly. No, Mom. You're ashamed. Pride belongs to people who paid attention. You didn't. Her tears came fast, and for once my father didn't interrupt. He took her hand instead. Dylan stepped forward, placed his seal cap gently on the table. I never understood what service meant until I saw you in that storm, he said. They loved me in all the wrong ways, and you were hurt because of it. I nodded. No one taught us how to love right. Dylan, we just learned through mistakes. My father reached into his bag and pulled out a yellowed envelope. We found this in the basement, your letter from Bahrain. We never read it, until now. His voice cracked. You don't have to forgive us. Just know I understand now. I don't need an apology. I said, I just need you to stop comparing us. Dylan isn't anyone's replacement. Light reflected off the metal table, catching our faces. 3 generations framed in clarity. The silence that followed wasn't heavy anymore. It felt like peace. I waited 30 years for this conversation, I said, and I wanted it here, because this is where I learned to stand tall without anyone behind me. When they rose to leave, my mother placed a small frame on the table. A photo of me at West Point. Glass newly polished. We're hanging this one in the center of the house. As the door closed, the room felt still again. I stared at the light glinting off my medals. For the first time, They had seen me, not with pride, but with truth. On my desk, a sealed envelope waited. Recommendation, promotion to Major General. For once, I didn't need to open it to know what it meant. 3 weeks passed before I heard anything from Virginia. The house I grew up in had always been loud with my father's voice and my mother's soft yeses. But that week, it was quiet. The kind of quiet that means people are finally listening. In my office at the Pentagon, I found the scanned copy of the letter I had written 20 years earlier in Bahrain. The paper was yellowed, the corners curled, my handwriting uneven from exhaustion. I began reading, unaware that hundreds of miles away, my parents were sitting on their living room couch, reading the same words from the original envelope they had just discovered in an old box in the basement. Our voices met across time, mine steady and calm, theirs breaking with each line. I never wanted to be called a hero. The letter began. I only wanted my father to look at me the way he looks at a real soldier. Maybe one day he'll be proud of Dylan, and I'll be proud of him too. But I hope he remembers that courage isn't just in pulling a trigger. Sometimes it's in enduring misunderstanding and still choosing to serve. My father stopped reading. The paper trembled in his hand. His eyes glistened under the lamplight. "I'm not the man who taught her courage," he whispered. "She's the one who taught me." My mother sat beside him with a sewing kit on her lap. She unfolded the faded American flag that once hung in our hallway the day he retired from the Navy. The edges were frayed, the colors dulled, threading a needle. She began mending the tears one by one. When she finished, she pressed the flag into his hands. "We'll keep this," she said softly, "to remember that honor isn't what you say, it's what you fix." The old clock ticked. The walls, for once, seemed to breathe again. Back in D.C. My phone rang. The Secretary of Defense's assistant was on the line. "General Tate, your promotion has been approved. Congratulations, Major General." I smiled, letting the moment settle like a quiet tide. "Thank you, sir," I said. "This time, my family will know." That night, 2 scenes unfolded at once. In Virginia, my parents hung my photograph in the center of the living room wall, between my father in his sailor's uniform and Dylan in his seal whites. In Washington, I hung a new frame of the 4 of us on the shelf behind my desk. For the first time in my career, the space didn't feel lonely. The letter lay open beside me, its ink faded but alive. It had survived war, time, and silence to become a bridge between who I was and who they finally saw. At home, the repaired flag fluttered slightly from the draft of the heater, the stitched seams glinting like scars that refused to disappear. Healing, but not erased. My phone buzzed once more. Dylan's voice filled the line, light and steady. "They put your picture in the middle, you know?" I laughed softly. "After 30 years, that wall's finally breathing again." I turned toward the window, where dusk washed the sky in gold and blue. The reflection caught the 2 silver stars on my shoulder. Honor isn't something you win. I thought, it's what remains when you stop fighting to prove it. Outside, the city lights flickered like a heartbeat finding its rhythm again, and far away, in a quiet house in Virginia, the sound of forgiveness filled the walls that had once held silence. 1 year later, the ocean would call again, this time from Guam. A year after my promotion, the mornings in Guam began with light spilling over the Pacific. Soft, endless, forgiving. I ran along the shoreline each day, the waves breaking in their familiar rhythm, the same rhythm that once filled battlefields and now filled the quiet between heartbeats. The sea roared, but inside me there was only calm. In my office overlooking the water, I hung 2 photographs. One showed the rescue team in Alaska, faces streaked with snow and victory. The other, newly framed, held my family, my father, mother, Dylan, and me. For the first time, we all seemed to belong in the same picture. That afternoon, a letter arrived in my inbox, scanned from my father's handwriting. "My daughter, now I understand why the ocean has always called to you. It doesn't need anyone to call it strong. It just is. I folded the paper gently and placed it in a file marked Personal Courage. When I stepped outside, the wind caught my hair, warm and salt-sweet. Sunlight glinted on the 3 golden stars on my shoulder. 3 quiet truths: resilience, recognition, release. My phone buzzed. A message from Dylan aboard his ship. "Sis, the sun's rising. It looks just like the morning I saw you saluted in Coronado." I smiled, typing back. "You see it now, don't you? The point isn't to be seen, it's to keep that light inside, even when no one's watching." The tide rolled in, steady and sure. I looked out at the horizon and whispered, "I used to think I needed to be seen. Now I know, light never asks for permission to shine." The waves answered with a single, even breath. Fade to stillness, 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 fade to stillness,